Have you ever wondered what the world would look like if one single event in history had gone differently? What if a fever that raged in Babylon over 2,000 years ago had broken today? We're diving into a world that almost was. A world where Alexander the Great didn't die at just 32 years old. In our timeline, 323 BCE marks the end of an era. Alexander's sudden death shattered his colossal empire. His generals, the Diadochi, tore it apart in 50 years of brutal civil war. The dream of a unified Hellenistic world died with its visionary, but in the world we're exploring. Today, Alexander survives. He recovers from his illness, his iron will unbroken, his ambition still burning as brightly as ever. With Alexander alive, there are no wars of the Diadochi. The empire remains whole, is single. Sprawling domains stretching from Greece to India, ruled by one undisputed master, after pacifying a few minor rebellions and consolidating his power. Alexander's gaze would have inevitably turned west. His work in the east was done. The next great challenge lay across the sea. Historians largely agree his target would have been the burgeoning powers of the Western Mediterranean. And first on that list, the ambitious, upstart Roman Republic. Imagine the scene. Alexander's battle-hardened Macedonian phalanxes, the most dominant military force of their time, clashing with the disciplined but still developing Roman legions. While the Romans were tough, they were no match for the tactical genius of Alexander and his veteran army. Italy would likely have fallen, its fate sealed not by centuries of conquest, but in a single, decisive campaign. With Rome under his boot, Alexander's ambition wouldn't stop. The next logical target would be Rome's great rival, the mercantile empire of Carthage, after a campaign across North Africa. The entire Mediterranean basin would effectively become a Greek lake. From the Pillars of Hercules to the Indus River, one empire, one ruler. This isn't just conquest. It's the creation of the first truly global superpower. Alexander wasn't just a conqueror. He was a cultural visionary. His policy of fusion, blending Greek and Persian cultures, would have accelerated on an unimaginable scale. He encouraged his soldiers to marry local women. He adopted foreign customs, and he founded cities that were melting pots of ideas, with the empire unified and expanding. This process of Hellenization would go into overdrive. The Greek language, koine, would become the undisputed tongue of administration, trade, and philosophy across Europe, Africa, and Asia. It would be the language of the known world. This cultural unity, enforced over centuries, would create a civilization fundamentally different from our own, built on Greek philosophy, art, and political thought. Imagine a single, stable superstate with the resources of 3 continents at its disposal. In our timeline, the Library of Alexandria was a beacon of knowledge, but it flickered and died amidst political turmoil. In this world, the flame of knowledge never goes out. With Alexander's continued patronage and that of his successors, institutions like the library wouldn't just be preserved, they would flourish. Science and engineering would receive continuous, state-sponsored funding on a massive scale. Think about the brilliant minds of that era: Archimedes, Euclid, Eratosthenes. Now imagine generations of such minds, all working within a single, stable system, sharing knowledge freely across a unified empire. The scientific revolution might have happened 1,000 years early. Steam power, complex mechanics, advanced astronomy, these wouldn't be discoveries of the 18th century, but of the first. We're talking about a world that could have achieved a steampunk-esque level of technology by the time of the real Roman Empire. So, what does this world look like in the 21st century? The most profound difference is the complete absence of the Roman legacy as we know it. No Roman law shaping our legal systems, no Latin languages like French, Spanish, or Italian. The spread and development of Christianity would have been radically altered, as it wouldn't have the Roman Empire as its vehicle. Instead, we see a single, continuous Hellenic superstate, perhaps ruled by a dynasty descended directly from Alexander, a world of gleaming Greco-futuristic cities, where politics are debated in Greek and society is shaped by 2,000 years of unbroken philosophical tradition. It would be a world both technologically advanced and ancient, a world of logic, reason, and absolute monarchy, a world utterly alien to us, all because one man, in one moment, survived a fever. History is a river, and just one small stone can change its entire course. What if the greatest conqueror the world has ever known, Alexander the Great, hadn't died at just 32? What if, in 323 BCE, in the heart of Babylon, he had recovered from his fever? Let's explore this divergent timeline. A world where Alexander lived on. First, the immediate aftermath. Alexander's survival means one crucial thing: no wars of the Diadochi. The bloody civil wars that tore his empire apart among his generals simply never happen. With Alexander's absolute authority intact, the vast realm he carved out from Greece to India remains unified, a single, colossal entity governed by one will. The empire doesn't fracture, it consolidates. After recovering his strength, Alexander's gaze would have inevitably turned west. Historians agree his next target was the rising powers of the Mediterranean. Imagine this: in the early 3rd century BC, Alexander's battle-hardened Macedonian phalanxes, the most dominant military force of their time, land in Italy. They face the legions of a still young Roman Republic. Rome was formidable, but it had never encountered a strategic genius like Alexander. His tactics, honed across a decade of unstoppable conquest, would likely shatter the Roman lines. Rome's destiny to rule the world ends before it truly begins. Italy becomes just another province, a Hellenistic satrapy under Alexander's command. With Italy subdued, the path is clear. The great naval power of Carthage is next. Its defeat would be swift, turning the entire Mediterranean into a Greek lake, a true Mare Nostrum. With the known world under his heel, Alexander would establish a dynasty. The Alexandrian Dynasty would rule for centuries, founded on the principle of absolute monarchy. He likely would have lived for another few decades, maybe until around 90 BC, solidifying his succession and administrative structures. But this immense success plants the seeds of its own downfall. An empire spanning 3 continents becomes a bureaucratic behemoth. Centered in Babylon, the administration grows fast, complex, and slow. Over time, this system designed to manage millions becomes a breeding ground for corruption and inefficiency, slowly draining the empire's vitality from the inside. But while the bureaucracy stagnated, science would have soared. Alexander was a patron of knowledge, a student of Aristotle. With his continued support, the intellectual fire of the Hellenistic era would burn brighter than ever. Alexandria, and now Babylon, would become twin capitals of science and philosophy, funded directly by the boundless wealth of the empire. Without the later disruption of Rome's collapse, ancient science continues on an unbroken, upward trajectory. This state-sponsored innovation leads to a technological leap. Imagine ancient Greek principles of mechanics and engineering, but supercharged. Monumental advances in cartography, engineering, and shipbuilding emerge, creating a world with technology that looks almost futuristic, yet distinctly ancient, a kind of Hellenistic steampunk reality. Culturally, this world would be vastly different. Alexander's policy of Hellenization would be ruthlessly enforced. Koine Greek wouldn't just be a common tongue. It would be the mandatory official language across the entire empire, from Spain to the Indus Valley. To further unify his diverse peoples, Alexander would formalize his own divine status, creating a state cult of the God King. This religious policy would have a profound impact. The nascent monotheistic faiths, like Judaism and early Christianity, would be suppressed. Instead of spreading across the Roman Empire, they would be driven underground, becoming sources of secret societies and rebellious movements, constantly sparking wars of faith that threatened the empire's internal security for centuries. Economically, the Alexandrian Empire would be an unmatched global power. By controlling the former Persian territories, it would have a total monopoly on the Silk Road, channeling all the riches of Asia directly into its coffers. Bolstered by their advanced knowledge of astronomy and navigation, Alexandrian explorers would set sail much earlier. By the 1st century BC, their fleets would reach the Americas, the New World. But these lands wouldn't be colonized in the way we know. Instead, they'd be treated as strategic outposts and distant trading stations, another node in a truly global economic network controlled from Babylon. So, how does this colossal empire finally end? Not with a bang, but a crumble. It wouldn't be barbarian hordes at the gates that bring it down. The threat was always internal. After centuries of existence, the sheer weight of the superstate becomes too much to bear. Bureaucratic decay, endless revolts from subjugated peoples in the former Roman and Carthaginian lands, and constant tension from a massive slave population would cause the system to buckle. Alexander's grand vision, the endless empire, wasn't defeated in battle. It simply collapsed under its own immense size and the failure of its own governance, eventually fracturing into several competing Hellenic successor states. The world we would inhabit today would be unrecognizable. The foundations of Western civilization, Roman law, the Latin language, the very historical path of Christianity would be absent instead. We would live in a world shaped by 2 millennia of Hellenic philosophy, ruled by monarchs, and defined by a completely different technological path, a fascinating and perhaps frightening alternate reality. Thanks for joining us on this journey through a history that never was. If you enjoyed this dive into a divergent timeline, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more explorations into the great what-ifs of history. See you next time. What do you think? Would this have been a better world? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more journeys into what might have been.